Today we are looking at Boolean logic. So as a definition about what Boolean logic actually is, it's a way of working with two values, which is true or false. This isn't all of the logic gates that we can use for this, but there's only three that we need to know for our exam, which is and, or, and not. And you can combine these to change the values that are output at the end. And in terms of why we do this, we use it to make decisions in computer programs, which controls things like lights turning on or off and so on. Now another part of this is something called a truth table. And let's say we've got two inputs going into one logic gate. Well, a truth table shows all possible outcomes. Now in our exam, we will need to be able to both draw a logic gate / logic circuit, which is multiple combined, and we need to be able to draw a truth table and fill it in correctly. These span anywhere between 3 and 6 mark answers, so this is one that we need to know. So the first logic gate that we're going to look at is the most simple one, which is called the NOT gate. And this is like a triangle with a circle on the end. If you forget your circle, you'll lose a mark, so you need to remember the circle on the end of it. This one's fairly straightforward because it's only got one input and one output. Whatever goes in, the opposite comes out. So if it was a 1 going into a NOT gate, it is a 0 coming out of a NOT gate. So the truth table for this, which you can see at the bottom, is relatively small. The column A represents the inputs. So the input for A could be a 1 or it could be a 0. And because it just flips it, column P is the output and just shows the opposite of what went in. Now the NOT table can be written in a couple of ways for the expression. So you can see in the middle it says P equals not A, or you could write P equals not A, but it's drawn a little bit differently. So instead of the word not, we've got this strange little symbol. It has been used in an exam before, so you need to recognize that, as that also means not. The next logic gate we're going to look at is the AND gate. This could be drawn as P equals A and B. So there's two inputs this time, which is completely different from the NOT gate. And like before, there's a different symbol that you can use to represent it. It looks like an upside down V, this one, but it means the same thing. It means and. So our truth table is a little larger on this one. And that's because we've got different combinations about what could be going into both A and B, and then what the possible outcome is. Now the rules of the AND gate is only when all inputs are a 1, the output will be a 1. So you can see for the first 3 rows of the truth table, all outputs of P are 0 because there was at least one 0 in one of the inputs. But then you've got both A and B are both 1s, so the output is a 1. The final gate that we need to know is the OR gate. So this one could be written as P equals A or B. So again, you've got two inputs like the AND gate did. It could also be written, and it looks like a capital letter V, but it also means OR. So P equals A or B, but with that little V looking thing, which also means OR. Now notice that columns A and B are exactly the same as they were in the AND gate, and that's because we show every possible outcome. So they are exactly the same, but then column P is what is different, and that's because of the rules of the gate. So for the OR gate, if at least one of the inputs is a 1, then the output will be a 1. So only when both A and B are a 0, P is also a 0. All other possibilities, the output is a 1. So what I've done here is I've joined a NOT gate to an AND gate. And notice that the input for the AND gate comes directly from the NOT gate. So in terms of the expression for what this would look like, it would say P equals not A, and you put the not A inside brackets. After the brackets, you would put AND B. If you're asked to write an expression, usually you would put not inside brackets. If we're drawing the truth table, you can see we've got an extra column in this. The extra column is to represent what comes out of the NOT gate. If a 0 went in at input A, like we know from the rules of the NOT gate, that would flip, which means in our column of not A, you would see a 1. Columns A and B are exactly the same because that's all possible things they could be. We're filled in column not A based on what is going into the input A, but then that will have to feed into the rules of the AND gate. So output P, at that point you would just follow the rules of the AND gate. So only if all inputs are a 1, the output will be a 1. So you can see on our second row is the only time there will be an output of 1. And that's because both inputs going into the AND gate were a 1, which follows our rules for the AND gate, meaning that column P will be a 1. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions to practice on this topic. So that we're getting some practice with those weird looking expressions, I've used them for these practice questions. I'll read them out loud so that you know what I'm asking you to do. So draw the logic circuit for the following expression. not A or B. And the second question is draw the logic circuit for the following expression, which is not B and A. Okay, let's go through the answers then. So the first one was draw the logic circuit for the following expression, not A or B. So it would look like this. So you've got A going into the NOT gates, and then you've got both feeding into the OR gates. Maybe you could have a little practice drawing the truth table out for that one as well. And for our second answer, draw the logic circuit for the following expression, not B and A. This is what it would look like. You've got B as the input going into the NOT gates, and then both of those inputs are going into the AND gates. And that's it for this one. I'll see you next time.